8 months post-divorce, Billionaire discovered incredible truth. She never had the abortion. Jake sat on the porch of his sprawling mansion, a mug of steaming coffee in hand, his eyes lost in the autumn leaves swirling in the wind. Each sip tasted bitter, laced with the overwhelming weight of memories that haunted him, memories of laughter, love, and the steady beat of a life once shared with Claire. They were the couple everyone envied, walking hand in hand through suburbia, dreaming of a family and a bright future. Now, he was just a self-made billionaire, a figure draped in wealth, yet profoundly alone. The vibrant backyard barbecues and community bake sales took place just beyond his wrought iron gates, but the laughter felt like a cruel reminder of the family he envisioned, the life that could have been. As he watched kids ride bicycles and families gather for football games in the street, a quiet ache gripped him. Jake had thrown himself into work after the divorce, burying himself in business deals and growth. Was it any wonder that the walls surrounding him had turned into a gilded cage? With every echo of laughter, he felt a part of him withering away, an emptiness that grew with each sunset that illuminated the mansion but not his heart. That day changed everything. When Claire's sister paid him a surprise visit, he sensed something was off. The news struck like a bolt of lightning. 8 months after their divorce, Claire hadn't gone through with the abortion. She had chosen to keep the baby. Stunned with emotions swirling like hurricane winds, Jake barely comprehended the implication of those words. A son they never had, the potential for a family, every dream now felt like a ghost haunting him. The questions ripped through him. Why hadn't she told him? What life could they have shared together? Amidst his whirlpool of despair, friends came around, supportive and loving. They filled his home with laughter and encouraged him to confront the past. The heartache, regret, and resentment began to fuel a determination. Jake knew he had to talk to Claire. They needed to have this conversation. And then it hit him, the painful truth he had spent too long avoiding, sitting at that cafe bathed in warm fall light, surrounded by the chatter of families sharing breakfast. Jake felt like an outsider in his own life. He fidgeted with the coffee cup, heart pounding as Claire walked in. Her presence felt like a gravity he couldn't escape. Time froze as their eyes locked, emotions bubbling up, trying to break free from where he thought he had locked them away. As they began to talk, the silence hung heavy with tension. Words were exchanged cautiously, tentative steps into uncharted territory. Jake's heart raced, whispers of forgiveness and longing darted around the room like fireflies. Just as they seemed to grasp the first inklings of understanding, Claire's gaze fell, shadowed by doubt. Moments dragged on, the noise of the cafe fading into oblivion as they faced the unasked question lingering between them. Could they truly rewrite their story? Or would this just be another chapter marked by the ache of what might have been? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With that glimmer of hope tangled with unfiltered pain, Jake couldn't help but wonder if the walls built around their hearts could come down. Would the love that once flourished survive the tumult of their past? The air buzzed with possibilities, questions, and a longing that could only be met through a shared truth. The warm light through the window flickered, casting shadows on the cafe walls, echoes of their history entwined with the promise of a new beginning. Would they find the courage to unravel and reclaim what was lost, or would fear seal their fate forever? The moment stretched out, heavy with unspoken words, as Claire shifted in her seat. Jake's stomach churned with anticipation. He had spent countless hours rehearsing this conversation in his head, each scenario leading to either heartbreak or hope. But as he laid eyes on Claire, with her disheveled hair framing her face, the woman he once loved felt like a distant memory wrapped in uncertainty. "Jake," she began, her voice almost a whisper, "this is a lot." He nodded slowly, unable to find the words. The weight of her decision pressed down on him. "It is. But I need to understand, Claire. Why didn't you tell me? We could have figured something out together." Her gaze fell, and for a moment, he feared he would never break through her silence. I didn't know how. I thought I could handle it alone. I was scared. I knew you wanted different things, he interjected, frustration spilling over despite his best efforts to keep it in check. I would have been there, Claire. I still want to know. I want to be part of our child's life. Tears brimmed in her eyes, reflecting the overhead lights like tiny stars caught in an unending twilight. Jake, you had your dreams, your plans. How could I come in and mess it all up? Her words struck him like daggers. It was as if she was making excuses for her silence. His world didn't include her and their child the way he envisioned. Mess it up? This is a life we're talking about. The cafe continued to hum around them, people carrying on with their lives, unaware of the storm raging at one small table. Jake's heart pounded painfully in his chest. He couldn't allow this to slip away, not again. Claire, he said, leaning forward, I was focused on my career after the divorce because I thought it was what I needed to do, necessary distractions. But this changes everything for me. I'm willing to change my plans. For you. For our child. Please, we need to talk about this. The silence felt like a vacuum, drawing the air between them. Could they truly face this together? Jake's heart soared at the thought of reconnecting, yet a flicker of doubt nagged at him. Would Claire accept his offer? Would she want him back in her life, even as a co-parent? Jake, I'm not sure if I can, she murmured, biting her lip as she cast her gaze downward. I've built my life without you. It has to be what's best for our baby. But that's just it, he urged, desperation creeping into his tone. It can be what's best for the baby if we both want it. If we both want to try. Her hesitation felt like a wall rising between them. The door to their future had opened, but Claire was reluctant to step through. Can we even go back? Can we ever erase the hurt? She questioned, eyes shimmering with unshed tears. Jake reached across the table, hesitating only a moment before his fingers brushed against hers. The warmth of her skin ignited something deep inside him, a flicker of hope. We don't have to erase anything. We can build something new. Together. The minutes felt like hours as Claire searched his eyes, seeking truths he wasn't sure he could articulate. Finally, a deep breath escaped her, a soft sigh filled with uncertainty. Maybe it's time to open that door again, she replied, her voice fragile yet daring, as if she were testing the waters. His heart surged with fierce emotion, but with it came the realization of fragility in their situation. They were on the brink of something beautiful but also deeply complicated. But as Jake watched her, this woman who held both his past and a future he never thought possible, he knew they faced a crossroads. Claire, if we do this, we have to promise each other honesty, no more secrets. No matter how hard it gets. Their eyes locked again, the air charged with a mix of tension and hope. Would they take the leap together, or would the weight of the past pull them apart once more? With uncertainty clinging to the edges of clarity, a question hung in the air, waiting to be answered. Can love survive the truths we choose to uncover? Claire pulled her hand away, the warmth fading almost instantly. The weight of the moment pressed down on both of them like a thick fog. She looked past Jake, out the window, watching the world flow by, couples laughing, children playing, a new life unfolding that felt so distant from their reality. Jake, things have changed, she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. I've built something for myself. My life now, it doesn't include you. And I don't know if I want it to. His heart sank at her words, the realization hitting him like a ton of bricks. All the hope he had grasped onto felt like it was slipping away. But you're still the same person I fell in love with, Claire. We can face this together. A shadow crossed her face, and for a moment, he could see the cracks in her resolve. Can we? She challenged, a spark igniting in her eyes before it dimmed again. What if we can't? What if us together is just more pain? I don't want that for our baby. Jake leaned back in his chair, frustration bubbling within him. We're not just talking about us anymore. This child is part of both our lives. It's a shared responsibility. I can't understand how you could keep this from me. Her eyes locked onto his, fierce and vulnerable all at once, and for a moment, the outside world faded. I didn't want to burden you. I thought you'd be better off. I didn't want you to have to choose. Choose? He felt the anger rising inside him, but he forced it down. You think I choose to walk away? I want to be there for our child, Claire. I want to help raise this baby. His voice softened. Don't you know that? She looked at him, a mix of hope and fear swirling in her expression. It was the kind of look that made him want to reach across the table and promise her everything would be okay, but he also knew promises were easy to make, harder to keep. Jake, Claire paused, taking a steadying breath. What if I'm not ready? What if I can't do this? I'm still processing everything from the divorce. I don't want to drag you through that again. You're not dragging me through anything. The urgency in his voice was palpable. I want to be a part of your life, Claire. You, me, our child, this can work. But we have to fight for it. Both of us. Tears brimmed in her eyes once more, reflecting the chaotic mix of emotions within her. What if fighting isn't enough? What if we end up breaking each other again? His stomach twisted. He wanted to tell her they could heal, that they could overcome anything together, yet doubt began to settle in the back of his mind. Would their past truly allow for a future? Maybe we need to take small steps, he suggested softly. Talk about the baby, how we want to parent, what it will look like. And if it gets overwhelming, we can take a break. But I need you to try. Silence enveloped them, the tension thick and heavy. Claire's fingers twisted together nervously, and Jake felt every second stretch into eternity. Did he dare hold on to hope? Did she? Finally, Claire nodded, a reluctant acceptance creeping over her features. Okay, small steps. A flicker of relief washed over him, intertwined with the uncertainty of what lay ahead. As they began to talk, shifting the conversation to the most simple logistics, Jake felt a cautious optimism take root in his heart, but just as a small smile lifted the corners of Claire's lips, a loud commotion interrupted their moment. A couple at a nearby table raised their voices, and Jake's attention shifted, sensing something was wrong. What's going on? He murmured, glancing over. Claire's eyes widened. I don't know. It looked serious. Jake's pulse quickened as he stared at the scene unfolding, tension gripping him once more. Just when they were starting to find their footing, it felt like the world was about to throw another curveball at them. What could this distraction mean for their fragile new beginning? Would it pull them apart before they even truly tried to reconnect? Jake turned his head toward the commotion, curiosity mixing with anxiety. The couple was shouting, their faces flushed with anger. A man slammed his fist on the table, startling the diners around them. Hearts raced as people leaned in, eyes wide. Should we check it out? Claire asked hesitantly. Her gaze flickered between Jake and the scene. I don't know, he replied, uncertainty lacing his words. It could be dangerous. They might need help, Claire insisted, a sense of determination sneaking into her voice. Before he could process her decision, she stood and walked toward the rising chaos. His heart sank. Reluctantly, Jake followed, unsure of what he defined. They approached slowly, the tension thick in the air. The couple continued to argue, their fists and words flying, drawing a crowd anxious for resolution. As they got closer, Jake noticed that the woman was shaking, tears streaming down her cheeks. We can fix this together, she pleaded, her voice quaking. Please don't leave me. The words struck Jake like lightning. Deep in Claire's eyes, he saw the same mixture of fear and longing that mirrored the woman's scream. The words hit home, the primal gut-wrenching fear of abandonment, of loss, of the unknown future. Maybe this isn't the best time, he murmured, not wanting to push Claire too much, but she had already moved ahead, a comforting arm reaching for the trembling woman. Hey, Claire said softly, you're not alone. We all go through tough times. Jake watched as Claire's warmth surrounded the woman, a soothing presence in the storm of emotions. He felt something shift internally. Claire could help right now, and maybe, in a way, this was an unspoken promise she was making to herself to not end up like that couple, filled with fear and regret. The crowd melted away, their collective anxiety replaced by the strong bond between the women. He realized Claire was taking a brave step, embracing the community around them, and reaching into the chaos instead of retreating. As Claire comforted the woman, Jake's heart swelled. Maybe this was a step he hadn't even realized they needed. They could find strength in vulnerability, together, one shared moment at a time. Suddenly, the angry man stormed away, leaving the woman alone, still sobbing. With a gentle push, Claire guided her to a nearby bench. "You can talk to us if you want," she offered, her voice steady and calming. Jake cleared his throat, stepping forward. "What happened? Can we help you?" The woman looked up, her eyes filled with a mix of gratitude and sorrow. "I messed up. He found out I was pregnant. He wanted me to terminate. I couldn't do it." His breath caught. Claire glanced at him, the weight of her gaze sharp and piercing. It was a moment of shared understanding. They both knew the complexities of life, the possibilities that stemmed from love and fear. "Hey, it's okay," Claire assured the woman, "life can be unpredictable, but you're strong. And you're not alone in this." But before they could help the woman further, Jake's phone buzzed violently in his pocket, a harsh interruption. He pulled it out and glimpsed a message that sent ice through his veins. "We need to talk. Now." "What is it?" Claire asked, her brow furrowing. It's about my dad," Jake replied, dread pooling in his stomach. "I think he's found out about us." Claire's eyes widened, the warmth on her face temporarily replaced by a shadow of fear. "What does that mean?" He swallowed hard, the implications of his father's influence loomed large. Would this shake their fragile connection? Would it be the end before they even started? As Claire clutched his arm, silence hung heavy between them, full of unanswered questions. They had just begun navigating their own path, and now another storm threatened to pull them apart. "Jake, what do we do?" she whispered, uncertainty driving the point home. That he took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her hand on his. "We fight for what we've started, Claire. Whatever it takes." But deep down, he wondered, did they really have the strength to face the battles, or would the ghosts of the past ruin everything before they could build a future? Jake's heart beat wildly against his chest as he read the text one more time, as if it might change. But it didn't. The reality of his father's intervention loomed over him like a dark cloud, heavy with unspoken threats and unyielding expectations. Claire's hand remained warm on his arm, grounding him, but he could feel the tension thrumming between them like a live wire. "What do you mean he found out?" Claire pressed gently, fear creeping into her voice. "I don't know how," Jake admitted, frustration bubbling beneath his skin. "But I didn't tell him about us. We've been careful." She swallowed hard, her eyes searching his for reassurance. "Do you think he'll try to come between us? Will he disown you?" Jake felt a chill. His father had always been a man of power and resolve. If he discovered Jake's relationship with Claire, a girl from his own past, he wouldn't hesitate to manipulate the situation to his advantage. He could ruin everything Jake had ever wanted, and the thought of it sent a wave of panic coursing through him. "We just need to stay strong, stay together," he said, forcing confidence into his words, even though doubt gnawed at him. "If we confront him together, maybe together?" Claire interrupted, uncertainty lacing her words. "What if he comes after me? I can't just put myself in danger." "Claire, look at me." He turned to face her fully, cupping her chin with his fingers, forcing her to meet his gaze. "You're everything to me. I won't let anything happen to you. I promise, no matter how hard it gets, we'll face it. Together." She nodded, vulnerability evident in her eyes. The chaos of the restaurant faded into a low hum behind them, the moment sharpened into focus. In that instant, he saw the strength that lay in her, the same determination that refused to give up on the woman they'd just comforted. That reminded him that connection mattered, even when facing the unknown, but before he could gather his thoughts, the sobbing woman on the bench caught their attention again. Her eyes were still red-rimmed, but something had shifted in her expression. "Are you two okay?" she asked softly, wiping her tears with trembling fingers. Jake felt a tug at his heart. "We're working through some things," he replied, wanting desperately to comfort her as Claire had done. "Just like you. We'll find our way, won't we?" "Yeah," she whispered, almost as if she were trying to convince herself. I don't want to fight with him, but what do I do? I love him." "That essay start," Claire said gently, her voice steady. "Love is powerful. It doesn't make things easy, but it gives you the strength to keep going. Just take it one step at a time." Jake glanced at Claire, his chest tightening as he understood the implications of her words. Life with love was about navigating the storms together. Could this be their moment of growth? The chaos that had interrupted their lives had shown them what truly mattered, but then his phone vibrated again, a stark reminder of their reality. The same dread washed over him. "I think I have to meet him," Jake said, the weight settling on his shoulders like a shroud. "Now?" Claire's whisper was almost a plea, her eyes wide and frightened. "You can't go alone. I want to be with you." Taking a deep breath, Jake nodded, an unexpected surge of courage swelling within him at her words. He realized that this was more than just a confrontation with his father, it was a leap into a future he desperately wanted with Claire. "Okay," he said with newfound determination. "Let us do this together." They turned to head out, the noise and crowd fading behind them. But as they stepped into the chilly evening air, dread quickly washed over Jake again. What was waiting for them could change everything. "Are you sure we're ready for this?" Claire asked softly, the tendrils of anxiety creeping back into her tone. As Jake glanced back at the restaurant, the chaos of emotions they'd just left still clinging to him, he felt the truth settling in. "We'll find out soon enough," he replied, voice steadied by their shared resolve, but deep down, a question lingered: how far? Was he willing to go to protect what they had, and at what cost? With each step Jake took, the weight of uncertainty followed him like a shadow. The streetlights flickered above, casting an eerie glow on the asphalt ahead. Claire walked beside him, her presence a calming force, but the impending confrontation gnawed at both of them. He looked over at her, searching for a glimpse of hope to ignite within him. "Maybe we should be waited," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "No," Jake replied, more firmly than he felt. "I need to do this. I need him to know I won't back down." They reached a small park near his father's office, a place that had once felt like home. Now, it felt like a battleground. "Just remember what we talked about," Claire said, squeezing his hand. "You don't have to take everything he throws at you." As they approached the building, its stark facade loomed over them. Jake could almost hear the echo of the expectations that had haunted him for years. He took a breath, gathering himself. "Let us go." Inside, the air was tense, thick with anticipation. The receptionist, who had known Jake since childhood, watched him carefully. He offered a weak smile, but the fear in her eyes reminded him of the stakes he was facing. Before he could reach his father's office, the door swung open. Gerald, his father, stood there, tall and imposing. The familiar features Jake had once admired now carried an edge of something darker: disappointment, perhaps, or warning. "You're late," Gerald said coldly, stepping aside to let them enter. The office was elegantly furnished, a stark contrast to the chaos unraveling in Jake's heart. "Dad," Jake started, but his father cut him off. "Sit." The demand was firm, leaving no room for objections. Claire hesitated, but Jake nodded for her to join him. They sat across from his father, feeling like two children caught in a storm, unsure of how to defend themselves. "What's this about?" Gerald demanded, fixing his gaze on Claire. "Are you responsible for this mess?" "Dad, it's not her fault. Claire and I enough." Gerald's voice rose, an echo of power that silenced the room. Jake felt Claire shrink beside him, but he couldn't let fear rule him. "I'm done being your pawn," Jake said, surprising even himself. "I want to let you dictate my life." "Claire is not a mess," she is someone I care about. His heart raced as he felt the energy shift between them, and for the first time, he stood tall against his father. Gerald's face turned stone cold. You think you can choose this path? That simple love will conquer all? It's not just love. It's everything, Jake shot back. And you have no right to come between us. The silence stretched, heavy and stark. Claire squeezed his hand, her support anchoring him in that boiling storm of power dynamics. Gerald leaned back, studying them, calculating. Love is a fantasy, he finally said, his voice lower but laced with contempt. You need to understand the real world, son. It doesn't revolve around romantic notions. Maybe not, Jake replied, his voice trembling but firm. But it does revolve around being true to yourself and the people you love. That's enough for me. Gerald's expression was unreadable, but Jake could sense the shift. He wasn't ready for this. The uncertainty crept back in, but he noticed that Claire was still beside him, her eyes filled with strength. Now, are you going to drag us apart or try to understand? Claire spoke up, her voice steady, casting warmth on the cold tension in the room. Jake marveled at her bravery, how she stood in the crossfire with him. Gerald's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. The shock was palpable, but Jake sensed a crack beginning to form in his father's armor. As the seconds ticked by, the air thickened with possibilities. They had laid themselves bare, and the outcome was still hidden in the folds of uncertainty. But the underlying question loomed: would love triumph, or would they be crushed under the weight of his father's expectations? With the clock ticking in the background, a new text message vibrated on Jake's phone, the screen lighting up with an unknown number, an omen of what was yet to come. What unexpected twist would this bring to their already fragile reality? Jake's heart pounded as the unknown message danced on his phone's screen. He felt an instinctive pull, a mix of curiosity and dread surging through him. What if it was about Claire? What if it was something worse? He blinked at it, momentarily forgetting about his father's simmering rage. Jake? Claire whispered, her voice a gentle nudge back to the moment. She eyed the phone, concern etched on her face. It's nothing, he replied quickly, but the words felt hollow. With a swift motion, he silenced the buzzing. He didn't want to distract from the moment, but that nagging thought lingered. There was something bigger at play. Gerald cleared his throat, a harsh sound cutting through the tension. You think you can just ignore reality? He leaned forward, intensity radiating from him. You're playing with fire, son. Jake swallowed hard. Wasn't that the reason they were here? To put out the flames of expectation smoldering between them? Dad, I'm not ignoring anything. I'm ready to face whatever comes next. Gerald's gaze flickered to Claire, a mix of disdain and curiosity swirling in his eyes. Maybe this is what you need, to learn that sentiment doesn't pay the bills. His voice dripped with condescension, like a teacher scolding a child. No. Claire's voice rose, an unexpected burst of strength that took Jake by surprise. It's not just about money. It's about choosing the life you want, even if it's the hard one. Jake couldn't help but admire her. In the face of Gerald's imposing demeanor, she stood her ground, unafraid. Maybe this was the moment that would change everything. He felt hope flickering again, like those flickering streetlights outside. Gerald's expression hardened. And what life would that be? One defined by these choices? You're fooling yourselves. But the smirk that laced his father's lips faltered slightly as Claire spoke again. Your success doesn't give you the right to dictate his happiness. We deserve to make our own choices, even if they don't meet your approval. Jake's breath caught in his throat. She was fighting for not just love but for their chance to carve their own paths. Wild pride surged within him. He wanted her to keep going. Maybe you've always wanted to control everything, but love doesn't work that way. It can't be bought or molded to fit expectations, Jake added, the words surging forth from a deep well of emotion. If I'm supposed to choose between you and a world where I'm nothing but a trophy for you, then I'm picking Claire every time. Silence wrapped around them, thick like fog. The tension seemed to shimmer, twisting the air like heat waves. It felt monumental, a moment where time stood still. Gerald's expression had shifted from defiance to uncertainty, and a tiny flicker of vulnerability glimmered in his eyes. As the silence deepened, a new message pinged on Jake's phone, this time more insistent. The ambience shattered like glass. He glanced down at it, heart racing again. "Just a moment," he muttered, reluctantly pulling his focus away from the confrontation. The words on the screen were startling. "We need to talk. It's about the baby." His heart dropped. Memories of the past months flooded back. Could it be? Fear and excitement wove a tangled knot in his chest. "Jake, what is it?" Claire's worry pricked at him, bringing him back to the room. He was caught between them again. "Something's happening," he said, his voice unsteady. Something that could change everything. What did this mean for them? Would this new revelation bring clarity or deepen their crisis? He felt the weight of choice on his shoulders, and in that moment, he understood, the fight wasn't over yet, not for him or for their love. As the silence fell again, Jake knew there was more to face, more to uncover. Would this shift in their lives pull them closer or drive them apart? The tension danced like firelight, and the next step loomed ahead. Jake's mind raced, the words echoing in his thoughts. The baby. Everything shifted in a heartbeat. The reality of the message loomed over him like a storm cloud, threatening to drown whatever fragile hope he clutched at. Claire's eyes widened, darting between him and the screen, her worry sharp and palpable. "What does it mean?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know," he admitted, his voice cracking under the weight of uncertainty. "But it feels important." The world outside faded as Jake's brain tuned into the moment. The shadows in the room seemed to creep closer, thick with unspoken possibilities, a wall closing in. Gerald's anger was now overshadowed by confusion, his previous authority dissipating, leaving behind a fragile thread of concern. "Important?" Gerald's voice rose a notch, disbelief lacing each word. "This isn't some game, Jake." "If it's true," he hesitated, eyes narrowing in thought. "It could ruin everything you've worked for." Jake clenched his jaw, anger flaring up like a fire unexpectedly ignited. "And what if this baby is my chance to do something real? Something outside of this life you've constructed for me?" There it was. The truth of his words hung in the air, a turning point. Gerald's gaze hardened again, but this time there was a flicker of something else beneath the surface. Fear? Jake couldn't quite tell, but he saw the conflict brewing in his father's eyes. Claire stepped closer, her warmth grounding him. "You deserve to find out the truth. We both do." With a sudden rush, Jake felt clarity settle over him. "I need to call her," he stated firmly, staring down at the message still glaring back at him from the screen. "I need to know if she's really pregnant. If she is." His heart thundered in his chest, the implications sinking in. He drew in a shaky breath, feeling a weight that was both terrifying and exhilarating. "What about us?" Claire's voice trembled ever so slightly. "What if this pulls you away?" Jake turned to her, meeting her gaze, trying to convey his mixed emotions. "I don't know. But I can't ignore my responsibility. Not now." "Just like that?" Gerald interjected, incredulity coloring his insistence. "You really think you can just waltz back into her life? That this will end well?" "I don't know what will happen. But I have to take that chance," Jake replied, his voice stronger, more assertive. He reached for Claire's hand but felt the tension running through it. "I hope you'll understand." The silence hung heavy as he glanced back at the phone, preparing to make the call that felt monumental. In that moment, all he wanted was to feel certain again, to understand what this revelation meant. As he dialed the number, each ring felt like an eternity. Gerald stood rigid, a storm in his own right, and Claire's concern framed the edges of his periphery. Would she answer? And if she did, what would he say? Right then, the call connected, and the words began to scrape at the back of his throat. He imagined, for a brief heartbeat, what it might mean for Claire and him, if the baby was real. Could a moment of truth unite them or tear them apart? Hello? A cold, familiar voice crackled through the line, pulling Jake into a world he'd thought he had left behind. Maria, Jake breathed, suddenly aware of the fragile thread hanging between his past and present. His heart raced as he braced himself for the whirlwind of emotions that would follow. Would this conversation reveal a future they never anticipated or unleash a storm that would tear everything apart? Jake. Maria's voice was sharp, like ice cracking underfoot. He could hear the surprise weaving through her tone, but it only took a moment for her to regain composure. What are you doing calling me? He swallowed hard. I just got your message, he said, feeling the weight of the world behind every word. Is it true? Are you really pregnant? There was a pause on the other end, the kind that made his heart pound louder with each second. He could picture her, pacing in a small, cluttered apartment, the kind they had promised each other they would never live in. Yes, she finally said, her voice softer now, but the resolve was still there. I'm pregnant. A punch to the gut. Jake staggered back in the moment, gripping the edge of the kitchen table for support. There it was, the confirmation of a reality he hadn't been ready for. This wasn't just some distant possibility anymore, this was real. All this time, he managed to say, struggling to find the right words. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I was scared, Jake, Maria replied. I thought it would be easier. I didn't want to complicate your life. You were starting fresh. He winced at the sadness seeping through the line. Could he blame her? The way they had ended, the anger, the heartache, it haunted him still. That's not how it works, Maria. You should be given me a chance to be part of this. There was a rustle on the line, faint but telling. He felt something shift, a distance growing between them despite the phone in his hand. I know, but you were moving on. I didn't want to drag you back into my mess. Your mess. This involves me, too. You can't just brush it aside. The frustration peeked out, catching Jake off guard. Anger hadn't been on his agenda when he called her. This isn't just about us. What about the baby? A fleeting silence sparkled like glass, cutting through the tension. I'm not sure what to do. I need your help. The tremble in her voice made his heart ache. Jake rubbed the back of his neck, conflicted. He could hear Claire shifting in the background, how the atmosphere had changed in the room, heavy with anticipation. There was a look in her eyes that he couldn't ignore. It was a mixture of hope and heartbreak, and it cut through him sharper than anything Maria could say. I'll be there, Jake found himself saying, surprised at the calmness wrapping around his words. We need to talk face to face. Jake, please don't know. We need to do this right, for the baby. You deserve that. There was a sense of finality as he spoke those words, like he was closing a door on one chapter while opening another. I'll text you the address, Maria responded, her voice steadier now. Jake could hear the resignation, as if she knew deep down that this step was inevitable. As they both hung up, the reality of his decision flooded his mind. Jake turned to Claire, who stood frozen, her eyes wide and swimming with a whirlpool of emotions. Jake, are you really going to see her? I have to, he said, running a hand through his hair. I have to know what this means. Are you sure? She asked, stepping closer, vulnerability etched on her features. Because I don't want to lose you. We might not be losing each other, he whispered, his heart racing at her words. But if this baby is real, I can't walk away. Not now. Jake's stomach twisted as he recognized the gravity of his choices, the swift currents pulling him toward a future he hadn't planned. He felt a storm brewing within, the kind that promised to reshape everything they understood about love, responsibility, and the lives they had built. And as he stood there with Claire, the tension crackled between them, thick enough to cut. What awaited him in that small apartment? Would the truth bring him closer to Maria or pull him further away from Claire? Before he could answer, the thought echoed, leaving him breathless. He was about to face the past, and the future hung in the balance. Jake paced the empty parking lot, the cold air biting at his skin, yet he barely noticed. All that filled his mind was the impending meeting with Maria and the weight of every choice leading up to this moment. He could feel Claire's presence beside him, the warmth of her hands still lingering like a soft echo of comfort. They stood together, united against the backdrop of uncertainty, yet fear threaded through the air around them. "Are you sure you want to go in?" Claire asked, her voice barely above a whisper. It was a question soaked in concern, layered with the unsaid. "Yeah," he exhaled, struggling to maintain his composure. "I need to hear it all from her. If we're going to make this work, our life, I have to understand what we're really facing." From where they stood, he could see the worn facade of the building. He took a deep breath, mentally preparing for the confrontation of his past. Together they stepped into the small apartment, shadows of memories waiting behind the door. The air was thick with history, a heady mix of anxiety and nostalgia. Maria opened the door, her face a familiar mixture of anxiety and resolve. "Jake," she said softly, an outpouring of emotions evident in her voice. "You came." "Of course," he replied, trying to find the balance between the past and the responsibility of their future. "We need to talk." She stepped aside, and without thinking, he walked in with Claire following closely behind, lingering just a fraction of a step back. The tension hung palpably, almost suffocating as they took their seats at the small, rickety table, the shadows of the past flickering around them like specters. Maria's eyes darted between them, recognizing the stakes of this moment. "I didn't want to complicate things, Jake," Maria began, her voice steady but wavering slightly. "When I found out I was pregnant, it terrified me." "Who says your life has to be a mess?" Jake countered gently. "I'm part of this too, and I want to be here for you. This is our child." The words rushed over him, a floodgate of truths flooding in. He could feel Claire's eyes on him, the support radiating like a beacon, grounding him amidst the emotional storm. Maria's gaze darted between them, vulnerability shining through. "You have Claire now, and I understand, but I thought it would be best for everyone if I just didn't reach out. I thought you were moving on." "We're moving forward together," Jake replied, the weight of his feelings anchoring his words. "But that doesn't erase what we shared. It doesn't erase the future that child deserves." Tears brimmed in Maria's eyes, glimmering like fractured glass. "I don't want to take you away from her, from the life you're building." Claire, still silent but intent, squeezed Jake's hand. This was the point of no return, a crossroads where lives intertwined. Jake took a breath, the air heavy with possibilities. "If I'm going to be a father, I need to know how we can do this right. What do you want, Maria? What does this look like for you?" Maria hesitated, her body language shifting as she raked her fingers through her hair. "Honestly, I don't know. I'm scared. What if I can't handle this alone? What if I pull you back into the past when all you want is to be with her?" Jake's heart ached for her, but understanding surged within him. "We will take small steps, just like Claire and I have been doing. We can figure everything out together, not just for you and me, but for our baby." "But listen," Maria said slowly. "You can't have both worlds. And it's not just about you, or me. It's about the other person too." Jake turned towards Claire, wanting her input. Inspiration burned in him as he saw the strength in her eyes. "Whatever it looks like," he said, "I want to find a way for us to be a family, even if it's not the conventional one." Claire nodded, tears shimmering in her eyes, as the tension shifted. "I want our child to know love and support, no matter where it's coming from," she said softly but firmly. "It's a lot of love to give." A spark of hope flared between them. It felt fragile but steadfast, a thread binding them together as they confronted the intertwining of their lives. "Maybe we can work towards a co-parenting plan?" Jake suggested hesitantly. "That would be based on openness and honesty." "Together, we can figure it out," Clara added, looking back at Maria. "As long as we promise to be true to ourselves and each other. No more secrets, right?" The room grew quieter, the intensity palpable, but some warmth blossomed amidst the uncertainty. Jake's heart tightened. This wasn't just about him, it was about unearthing their truth and confronting the evolving tapestry of their lives. Maria nodded slowly, and wiping her tears, she spoke, "I want to do this right for the baby. If we're going to build something new, it starts with honesty. I'm willing to try." "Me too," Jake said, relief washing over him. Reflecting on their journey, the uncertain path ahead began to take shape like a sunrise cutting through the dawn. As they left the apartment, a sense of unity pulsed through them, a connection transcending fears and past decisions. They made the promise to each other to grow, to adapt, to embrace love in its various forms and storms. They walked out together, hand in hand, crafting their own narrative, one of hope, transformation, and a future built not on past mistakes but on present courage. With hearts intertwined anew, Jake knew they had merged their stories. The reality dawned on him: love, while messy, was the truest form of family. Time stretched out before them like an open road, filled with possibilities and challenges alike. "Are you ready to face it all?" Claire asked, her eyes sparkling with newfound hope. "Together, we can make it," Jake replied, a radiant smile gracing his lips, and they stepped forward, into their new horizon, knowing that whatever came next, they could navigate it together. The dawn breaking ahead promised nothing less than their continued fight for love, family, and all their shared dreams. Now, listen up. If this is the ending that hits home for you, you need to subscribe right this second to keep up with more exclusive stories. Leave a like now to support this journey and fuel our creative engine. I want to hear what you think, so comment your reactions and feelings about this finale. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Let us grow this community together.